Alright, this time the quick speed shop. Check it out. Bam! I cut the frame rails out of the back of the Mercury Sedan. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home. Man, those things are heavy. Okay, here we are. Bam! I've been hacking all day. Got the frame rails got cut out. Got the rear frame rails. The new frame rails are all permanently welded in. All the gussets are made. Got a rear crossmember made. You got a receiver hitch installed. Got a bunch of other things going on. So let's go back to the beginning. I'll show you how I started. Okay, last time you saw I welded these rails in here, the rails that I made. If you haven't seen that, go back and check out the video from last week. But here we go. What I want to do today is focus on getting these yellow rails cut out of here. Cut some of this floor out. I've got to cut off the exhaust pipes down here because they're in the way. And we'll open this up and maybe get it ready to see if we can roll the suspension under here. I'm going to see how far we can get with that. But here, let's go over what we got right now. I've got a temporary support going across the frame rails because there's no rear crossmember yet. I got that tacked on here on the front side. I've tacked this piece of angle iron across the top to keep the rails from doing that until I get a crossmember in for the shocks. Because right about where this crossmember was, there's going to be a new one going across. It's going to have shock absorbers down to the newer end. So right now the car is bolted here to the original frame rails. It's sitting on the new frame rails here. So that should be okay. So I should be able to take these bolts out. You have the weight of the body sit here on the new frame rails. And then we'll be able to cut these yellow rails right out of here and get this other thing open right up. I've got to take the brake line loose here on the bracket. Just kind of move it out of the way. I'd like to cut this floor section out of the way so it's straight all the way across. Probably work on doing that. But the process is looking real good here. The rails are tied in, welded three ways around, and then we'll get into building gussets and stuff for that. But it's going to be really open the trunk up here. It's going to have a lot of space. The Mustang gas tank I'm using is going to fit in this area here, hang down below the rails. It's going to be the trunk floor. The filler neck will be about where this light is here. And so you open the trunk and you have the filler neck right there. But there'll still be a ton of trunk space. There'll be a new rear firewall here. So you'll be able to put a lot of stuff in this trunk when this is all done. So I'm going to get the saws all out. I'm just going to wing off these exhaust tips up here. There's a straight section of pipe. I ordered a new like dual exhaust kit from Summit, 2 1/4 inch pipe that is like generic, like straights and bends and stuff. So once we get the rear end in, I'm going to have to build new exhaust. I'm going to have it come out the back of the car here. So that'll be another thing we got to do in a future video. But right now the exhaust is in the way for the leaf spring front hangers. So I'll get them cut out of the way first and do a bunch of other cutting in here and get this thing opened up. Okay, I'm getting ready to cut the rails out here. Let me climb under, I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to use the face of this 4-bar mount, and I'm going to weld a piece of tubing between the two frame rails here, and also weld it into this. So I've made my cut mark here on the frame rail. And I'm going to cut these off at the same angle of these, and then we're going to attach this to a piece of tubing here. I'm also, with the exhaust cut off back in here, I'm thinking about windowing the bottom of this bracket to get my exhaust to come through here at frame and then kick up and go over the axle. So I'm also thinking about that when I make my bracket. But most of this bracket's going to be up here out of the way, so it'll allow the exhaust to come through. And this will still be pretty strong enough. And then the spring mount is going to mount to the bottom of the frame down here, which will be gusseted around here to the frame, and the mount will be down here. So this piece essentially isn't doing too much. It's kind of like tying the inner rail to the outer rail. So I'll be able to window and plate the bottom of this in for the exhaust. So I just thought about that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Cut this around here. I cut that like drive shaft hoop thing out. So I can cut through here at these angles and then just let the frame rails be free. I got the brake line mount. Actually got to get the brake line out of the way there. Got the brake line free, and then cut through this, and then later this bottom of this will get cut off. here flat, so nothing will be hanging down below the frame except for the leaf spring mount. So I just started hacking. I cut the top with a sawzall up here. I'm just going to get, got to cut around the bottom. So I'm going to bust out the grinder and wing both of these off, and I'll get this frame rail right out of the back of the car. Bam, there we go. Look at this, here we go, frame rails out. Bam. You stick these over here. Well, I went and did it now. Heck, those suckers right off there, look at that. So you can see down on the rails, you can see, actually it's two pieces of rail there making that. But original frame rail with the inside boxing plate here. So now I can sheet right across the end of this with a piece of tubing up here to tie in, like I said, and then I'll just box this bottom section back in down here. But that wasn't too bad. I didn't kill myself. It came off there, and now we got just the full width rails here, and we're opened right up, ready for action. You can see the whole rail in place now, and the wheel tub and how it's going to go. This is going to be awesome. It's going to be legend. Wait for it. Dairy. It's going to be legendary. To quote Barney Stinson. Okay, before I weld it up there with the front, like we just talked about, I want to make a rear cross member here to get so the rear of the frame rails can't move around when I'm doing welding on the front. So what I took is a piece of a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch same gauge metal, 11 gauges of frame, and I've made a square rear cross member here. Now it mounts down underneath the frame rails. I just use a zip screw to hold it in for mock-up purposes, but it mounts down underneath the frame rails here because the Mustang gas tank that I'm going to use goes up in the frame, and it's going to sit up above this, and the tank needs to be back far enough where if I put this cross member between the rails, it would hit the tank, and then the tank wouldn't be able to go. If you move the tank ahead, it would be interfering with the rear end housing. So this is going to mount underneath here. It's still inside the back of the body, so you're not going to see it here on the back of the body. And I'm thinking about welding the receiver hitch to the bottom of it. They'll be kind of hidden, like hang out back here under the license plate mount. Might even be able to notch it up into here because the plate only comes down to here. But anyways, have a receiver hidden here in case I ever wanted to haul a trailer to go to like an event or something. I mean, now's the time to add it. This will also give me somewhere to mount. I can weld brackets to this to make when I put the rear bumper on, the bumper's going to cut through the pan up in here somewhere, and I can weld the rear bracketry to this cross member. That's why I made it out of pretty heavy stock, so it'll be the rear bumper support. So I want to get this welded in before I do all that welding up there, just to help tie the back of the rails together, because right now they're just tack welded with a couple pieces of angle iron. So I cut this out, got it all ground down. Up top here, I'm going to take the piece I cut off for the 45, I cut off the end of it, and I'm going to turn this into a gusset, and it's going to have a 45-degree down gusset up here to help it so the rails can't twist. They'll gusset up real good. And I might put another one like this to gusset the bottom of the rail down here. It'll lock it all up good. But this will give me the drop cross member that I need to clear when the gas tank goes in here. And since the gas tank will be up here like ahead of it, it also gives some crash protection. If you got rear-ended really hard, it would hit the back of the frame before it crushed into the gas tank. So that's like a little extra safety action right there. Well, I'm thinking on the receiver hitch here, and I think it looks like a good plan. I've got this old hitch that I made that used to be on my Studebaker truck, and it seems to fit in here perfectly. And if you look down here, it's got some holes for its safety chains. And then I've got this big plate on the back side, which will weld up perfectly to this cross member. And then I can gusset over it to double it up and super strengthen it up. So I think it's going to look good. I got my plate, oops. I got my plate here, which if I put it in here, get in there. It goes in the pan right there below the pan. It looks perfectly on there, sticks out just enough. What I'm planning on doing here, let's get over here, is running these 41 Ford bumpers on this car. So the bumper is going to be up here, and obviously with the bumper there, I can't really have the plate. Try to hold everything up. This is need like 18 hands here. So there's a plate, but if I put the bumper on the car, it's going to be about there, about there. And obviously that hides the license plate too much to be using in the pan. So I'm thinking about mounting the plate just like original style action, or like 50s. I'm going to mount the plate to the bumper, and I'm going to build some kind of bumper surround or plate surround here. So the plate will actually be here, and it'll hide the hole in the pan, and there'll be a license plate guard going around it with the light and all that above it. So I have like a 50s look, something that would bend around in the 50s or 60s. But the bumper will be here. Then the receiver hitch will be really disappear under the back of the car, because the bumper will stick out, you know, a few inches away from the body like this, and then and all that. So the receiver hitch should pretty much disappear. So I think that looks good. This bumper's all wonky. I've got two better ones. It's got a big damage spot in it there. But I want to put bumpers back on the car, and I think that's going to be the hot setup. Is have the plate be there and all that, and then the hitch will be down away. You won't even see it unless you're like way back behind the car. So I think I'm going to go for it. I've got an old like teardrop Halliburton trailer. It was like a tool trailer, but you could use it like a camper and stuff. It's from the 50s. That's got like the same slope of this car. And I'd like to take that around to some shows once I get that fixed up. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put the hitch right on it. And then, you know, the receiver would come out, because the back of the car is going to be pretty low. That's another reason you won't see it, because it'll be pretty low to the ground. So I'll have a hitch receiver come up upside down with the ball up in the air, up in here in front of the plate. So this is the time to do it, because I can tack it to the cross member now, take the cross member out, fully weld up the hitch on the stand over here, get it burned in real good, instead of like trying to lay under the car and weld upside down. So this, you know, if I wanted to add a hitch later, it'd be a little more difficult, plus the gas tank would be there and stuff. So this is the time to do it. So I'm going for it. Okay, so I'm getting her welded up here. Let's go in for a close-up. I got a gusset to the top of the receiver tube there. This is where my safety chains go here. Ooh, that's hot. I gotta let her cool down a little bit before I can finish up. On the back side here, I'm welding up this plate here, the seam. And then I'll probably put a couple of strap pieces just over it to overlap to tie it in good. And then I'm going to grind these points off when I get that welded on. This will be super strong here. It'll be give good protection to the gas tank. It'll be a super strong spot to mount. You know, I'm not pulling a car trailer with this thing, obviously. I'm just pulling a little trailer, or maybe a tiny little camper or something. So this will be plenty beefy enough once this is all tied into the frame. It ain't not going anywhere. So looks good. I finally got to use my hitch. I've been saving this thing. I took it off about 8 years ago. Finally it came in handy. Bam. And we'll put it here on the 40 Mercury. Okay, I did a whole bunch of cutting and fabbing. Now we're ready to weld here. I've got the rear cross member zipped back into place. I've got a couple of gussets here, triangle gussets, to angle this up and support it good there. Tacked in, both sides. And then we'll go under the car. I'll show you what I'm going to work on. And I think I'll set up the time lapse and do a little welding here. You can watch that with some music. Well, let's creep under the car right quick first. So down here on the frame, I went and I cut the frame rail, original frame rails off here. I got some decorative end cap to cover it up. This is like railing topper. My buddy's got a fab shop, and I get some scraps sometimes, so it's going to make kind of a neat little decorative end just under there that only you and I will know it's there. And it fits good. So I'm going to weld all that up. I cut the bottom off the 4-bar hanger here. I'm just going to leave these on here because they're burned in back here. It's real hard for me to cut and stuff, and it sprays sparks everywhere. It was all I could do to get these frame rails cut off. It took forever to cut them off with a Sawzall and all that. So I'm just going to leave these mounted up here. They're not going to hurt nothing, and maybe they might come in handy someday for something else. But I'm going to burn that in. I got gusset plates up here to angle to keep the corners going. I'm going to burn those in. I'm going to hit the bottom of this frame rail here. And the step up on the outside, I'm going to grind this down. I'm going to take a piece of flat stock, overlap on the outside of the frame, come around here, and then overlap up onto here. They'll double lap the outside of this. I'll have the gusset on the inside. And probably when I put the spring mount down here, it's probably going to overlap on the bottom of this to tie this in. So this will all be shiplapped real good and tied in here real nice. So that ought to work good. Alright, so I made some good progress here in this video. Got the frame rails cut out, got the new rails all welded in. Well, all the gussets done, got the rear crossmember made with the receiver hitch, that's good. It's real super beefy. Hopefully I can pull like a cool little trailer sometimes with this when I go to shows or whatever. It's almost ready to roll the rear end in. I think in the next video we'll get that out, we'll roll it in here and jack it up and just see how it kind of lays out. I'm not really sure exactly how it's going to sit height-wise yet. That's one big I think it's going to be alright, but that's a question in my mind, so we'll get into that. But in the meantime, I got some more grinding to do. I'll just do that off camera. I got to clean all this up in here, and we're going to get prepared for the next step, which would be spring mounts in the front and shackle mounts in the back. And then pretty much can probably set the car right now and start to dial in the drive angle, and then start to make the floors and the wheel wells and all that and get this thing buttoned back up. I'm happy with it. I think it's coming out good. It's a lot of work cutting a car in half like this. A lot of things could go bad if you don't do it right. Like, I'm glad I got the bracing here in the body and all that. That worked good. And leaving the original frame rails in place while I made the new frame rails worked out real nice. So it's working pretty good now. So I'm getting excited. I can't wait to see what it looks like on the ground with the new rear end and the new wheels. I ordered a dual exhaust kit from Summit, like a universal exhaust. We're going to build 2 1/4 inch pipes coming out the back. Eventually they'll probably just come out here. I got to also cut the tail pan and add a 41 Ford bumper on this. That's going to be exciting. So a lot of stuff to look forward to. So thanks for watching the Mercury series here. Hopefully I'll get this thing back together before springtime and I'll be out driving it next year. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for your alerts, tell your friends, and we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop putting the 40 Mercury back together again.